Hey everybody, it's Airlorn here. We are taking a quick look at the patch. This is my first look, first impressions. I'm going to be on vacation this week, but if you want to catch me live and see these kinds of things, check out my Twitch stream. We're live every weekday from noon to 4. Check out the Discord, should be a link in the description, and I hope you enjoy. Let's take a look at the new patch. Okay, so just got out of a game and the patch came out right when I was in the middle of it, but we're gonna take a quick look-see here at our first impressions, see what we got. This is definitely a long time coming for the balance update. There's been some characters that have been a bit of a problem, Shiv and Seven. So hopefully we'll see that addressed. Melee I think is a little too strong. And I think there's a couple other things that the people have had gripes with that need to be taken a look at, but let's get right into it. So starting off here, we got mid-boss HP is now fixed at the spawn time. Base HP increased from 6725 to 12,500, and growth reduced from 470 to 200. Okay, so it sounds like the first mid-boss is going to be about twice as tanky, and later on it'll probably even out, and it's locked on when it spawns, which is interesting, I guess, instead of scaling up over time while it is alive. So like, when this crosses over, I guess you'll have an easier mid-boss eventually in the game. They also reworked the rejuve reward for mid-boss, no longer buffs troopers. Okay, that's interesting. Reduces respawn time and buffs various stats. So basically everything it did before, it doesn't anymore. And instead, upon death, 3 rejuve crystals fall to the ground, or 4 for subsequent mid-boss kills. And claiming one grants you in place revive after 3 seconds. So basically, instead of the stats and the troops, it gives you like old soul rebirth. You've already claimed one and claim another, it'll go to an ally. Priority is closest allies first, then most recent dead allies. Dying with rejuve no longer counts as kill death, nor gives out bounties. Okay. While you have the rejuve buff, you gain the following: 20% max HP, 20% fire rate, and 15% spirit damage. Gaining the buff heals you to full and lasts up to 7 minutes. Huh. Okay, so the positives here, I guess, are that if you give mid boss to your carries now, it seems like it will be pretty strong, and like those team fight swings where you'd have like 6 people with rejuve go into the enemy base and get wiped, those like soul swings will probably be less, like won't even be a thing anymore because it doesn't count as death, doesn't give out bounties, which I think is probably a good change, because it felt kind of bad to get the rejuve as a team go in and then like you take some stuff in their base, maybe you drop patron, and then if you wipe it's like even on souls. So it didn't really feel super advantageous. Like, if it was definitely a map advantage, but it didn't feel like economy wise that much of an advantage, so that'll be good for that. The buffs are really strong: 20% max HP, fire rate, and spirit damage, or 15% spirit damage for your carries. So you'll definitely have to make sure you're, one, I think it'll be nice because it'll get those wandering carries in the jungle to come to mid boss because they want those buffs, and then also it will it'll make them really strong, so they'll be able to carry through fights hopefully. Definitely an interesting change. I'll be curious to see how this works out in practice. This base HP difference is going to make it really, really hard to go for like a 10-minute mid boss. I'm surprised they didn't change. Honestly, I think with how much stronger this is, I would almost like to see them add some kind of earlier objective in the mid boss pit or something, because it seems like that's like a decent amount of health change. Meleeing a mantling enemy no longer cancels their mantle, instead applies 80% movement slow and ramps down 20% over 2 seconds. Okay, I like that, because it was really annoying when you just like were trying to mantle up to somebody on high ground and they would just spam melee you. Super obnoxious. So glad that doesn't stun you off anymore. Adding a debuff that makes you climb ropes 40% slower for 4 seconds after you've taken player damage. Debuff only exists when you're on a rope and tapers off to 0% in the last 1 second of the damage window. Okay, I mean, that's kind of nice. I think ropes were really overpowered for getting out, and this makes them a little bit easier, a little less challenging to catch up to people when they're on ropes, and it makes them a bit riskier to just go for ropes on escapes. So these seem like good changes overall. Slight reduction to the amount of turn you can do while performing heavy melee. Melee is a little bit OP right now, so I'm good with that. Light melee base damage reduced by 20%, except for Viscous, Calico, and Bebop. Interesting that those three get... I guess it kind of makes sense because they all have like punch-related abilities. Bebop's Uppercut, Calico's Leaping Slash, and Viscous's Puddle Punch all, I believe, scale off of melee in some way, shape, or form, so probably didn't want to change that. Heavy melee cooldown increase from 0.9 to 1 second. That'll be a weird muscle memory change. Probably fine and good. Cooldown time when missing increased from 0.9 seconds to 1.3 seconds. So if you miss a heavy melee, I guess there's like a longer lag time before you can punch again. Probably a good change. So it's I mean, it's like an effective, what, 4 seconds is like, I don't know, like a almost 40% DPS decrease for heavy melee now. This is a great change. Parried stun duration is no longer reduced by debuff resistance, so those Abrams and like Shiv punch builds that also had a bunch of built-in debuff reduction, where you would parry them and then they'd be basically back up before you could do anything. It makes it much riskier to go for those punches. That'll be good. Parry bonus damage is no longer melee specific. Now affects all damage types, reduced from 35 to 30%. That's a pretty big change. So if you want to wear parries, like when you parried someone, your melees would do more damage to them while they were stunned from the parry. But now it's all damage, so like if you parried an Abrams in the middle of your team, they just take 30% more damage from every source, so that'll make those tanky melee characters a lot easier to kill. It seems like a good change. Heroes now have different dash speeds, same distance, slower to get there. They're placed into 3 buckets to start. Bucket 1, 5% faster. Bucket 2, 5% slower. Bucket 3, 15% slower. Bucket 1, Ivy, Haze, Holiday, Calico, Grey Talon, Paradox, so all the kind of squishier, faster characters. Bucket 2, 7, Mirage, Lash, Yamato, Pocket, Viscous, Viper, Warden, Vindictus, Sinclair, Wraith, and Furnace, Ladygeist. So just the like most other characters. These are like, you know, like the average characters, I guess. And then Bucket 3 is Moan, Krill, Abrams, Shiv, Dynamo, Bebop, Kelvin, McGinnis. So these are all the slow characters. I have no idea what that's going to change or how that's going to feel. It'll be definitely different. Like, I'm not sure how much of a difference 15% is going to make, but like, for example, Mo and Krill, it might be a little bit harder to like go for those dash in, scorn, under tower, dash out kind of plays, and it might be a little bit harder for you know, some of these characters to move around. McGinnis, I'm sure Justin's gonna hate that, and it'll feel probably pretty bad. But I guess I don't know. It'll be hard to say. No idea how to feel about that one. Seems fine. A little weird to have them. I guess it kind of makes sense, but Remove the teleporters behind walkers. That is a crazy change. That is a huge change. So now the only teleporters on the map are the ones in the middle. It is, man, this is going to be tough because the macro in some games is already like pretty bad. And this is going to make it really hard to rotate to go protect those walkers. And you're going to have to, you know, you're probably going to have your team be much more effectively split up. After 20 minutes, trooper spawn time is reduced from 30 seconds to 25 seconds. I feel like this just increases the pace of play a little bit. Make sure that you're staying on top of keeping your waves pushed out. Trooper bounty growth reduced from 1.5 to 1.2. So we're going to be a little bit poor earlier, but then this change will probably make it net neutral later on, maybe? Remove the bounce pads on top of the nursery fish market rooftop leading back to mid. These are probably some of the most annoying like getaway bounce pads in the game right now. Pretty okay with that. Makes it harder to just go hide behind your mid walker, which is usually the last one that's up. So I think that seems like a reasonable change, I guess. Trooper ally split updated from 165 30 20 15 11 to 165 28 15 12 8. So it seems like there's maybe some underlying, like some subtext here of the patch wanting less of the death ball style of play that we've been seeing a lot of. and really wanting to make sure that we are like splitting up and not having like 5 people rush down an objective. Breakable souls growth per minute reduced from 2.6 to 2.0. Boxes are nerfed. Seems fine. They were probably too strong, and now I think that I've been thinking that going for boxes in general was probably not super optimal in lane if you could try to be pressuring instead, and now I think it's even worse, right? Um, Comeback multipliers have been reduced a bit, which is good. One of the big complaints recently, especially of higher MMR players, has been that like the game feels very swingy, but like not really in a good way. It feels like if you get an advantage, it's hard to maintain a meaningful advantage. Neutral bounties increased by 15%, strong neutrals 25%, with their medium neutral respawn rate increased by 15%, or by 17%, and strong by 25%. So it seems like neutrals are stronger early on to try to get. It'll give you a bigger bump in souls, but the net economy is slightly less because the spawn timer is higher. And it'll probably be more advantageous to take like enemies. Like if you can take enemy camps now, that like you should be. I think taking enemy camps is like super priority right now. Sinner Sacrifice Retaliate damage increased from 40 to 60, so it hurts more. And Sinner Sacrifice Heavy Melee and Success Bonus now grants 4 buffs rather than 3. These also take a little longer to kill now due to the melee timing changes. There were people that were already not trying to heavy melee them and just getting the souls because it was taking too long. Maybe the 4 buffs makes up for that. Hard to say. Probably worth trying to get the buffs. 4 buffs is kind of a lot. Let's see, hero bounties are now reduced based on the amount of players, similar to the trooper mechanic. Kills are less efficient rewarding when it's a big group. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players are now 100, 100, 90, 85, 80, 75% efficient. Interesting. So it really does feel like they're trying to get away from this death ball-y sort of scenario that a lot of games seem to devolve into right now. Move speed slow and shooting reduced from 30% to negative 25%. Like side fleetfoot nerf kind of because it's less efficient. Sidewalker's HP increased by 10%. I think that's a good change. Sidewalkers probably died too fast. Objectives no longer have 20 to 25% spirit resistance, but the following abilities now do 50% less damage to objectives: Last Stand, Stormcloud, Hyperbeam, Heavy Barrage. So characters with good, like Yamato, Pocket, good abilities for throwing at walkers are probably happy with this change, but it is a lot harder to just like level 4 Last Stand, excuse me, not level 4, like hit your ultimate on Warden with Arcane Surge, and then just Arcane Surge Last Stand Guardians, or like Stormcloud for taking Guardians, Hyper Beam, that kind of thing. It was really easy to just get those ultimates in lane, walk up to a Guardian, press your ultimate, and then take it. That seems like a pretty good change. Trooper walk speed increased from 6.1 to 6.3, and the run speed is 11 to 13. So I think this is feeling like there's like a bigger focus on like managing waves. They move faster, they're more punishing, their spawn timers are lower, the bounties for grouping are worse. So it feels like all this is really pushing to try to get people to move in a direction to make sure that they're taking care of their side waves and managing their waves properly, which is something that good players were already doing, and it will now reward people for doing it more. And so hopefully players will start to, especially in lower elo lobbies, start to prioritize those things even more. Minor respawn curve reductions, 19 minutes 40 to 35, 30 minutes 80 to 75, 40 minute is still 85 seconds. Okay, so like spawns are a little faster. Deadlock already has some really long respawn times, but you also get around the map pretty fast, so make them a little bit shorter, a little less gray screen time, which is good. Updated the zipline knockdown to make the player go straight down and not start the stun timer until they hit the ground. Interesting. So it is even more. It's probably more punishing now than it was previously to get knocked off of the zipline. And stun duration reduced from 3 to 2.5. So yeah, probably a little bit more punishing to get knocked down. Added a new UI indicator on HP for showing pending heal. Affects things like Abram's passive. Oh, interesting. So you have like a heal on you. Like, I wonder if it works for like Mystic Regen, something like that, and it'll tell you how much it'll heal up and give you a little indicator. That'll be nice. Seems nice. Weapon items, restorative shot, NPC heal reduced from 20 to 15, and the weapon damage was reduced. So that item was probably overtuned. Seems like a good nerf. Fleetfoot bullet resistance reduced. Fleetfoot gets nerfed here, and I think Fleetfoot also gets nerfed up here with the 5% change, so it's like less valuable for the no bullet slow, and now it's slightly worse stat-wise. Melee charge bullet resistance from 10 to 6. Melee charge, I think melee in general is too strong, or was too strong, so this seems like a good nerf. Spirit Shredder bullets, spirit resist reduction increased from 7 to 8%. I think this item is like probably pretty good now, especially if it's 8% on the upgraded versus Spirit Rend. Yeah, seems fine. It seems like it's probably pretty good. Slowing bullets after buildup is achieved, debuff duration is refreshed rather than starting buildup again. Did this not? Debuff is achieved, debuff duration is refreshed rather than starting buildup again. So you can just keep slowing bullets on someone? That seems like should have probably been that way in the first place. Swift Striker fire rate increased 18% to 20%. I think a lot of people are skipping Swift Striker and just going straight to Burst Fire. Might make this slightly more relevant. Express Shot primary weapon damage increased from 165 to 185. I wonder if that makes Express Shot a compelling item to buy on like shotgun characters. Because right now, pretty much the only character that is buying Express Shot, or only characters that are buying Express Shot, are like characters that are abusing alt fires. Maybe occasionally like a gun pocket, maybe once in a while in Abrams, but generally not a lot besides like this is like a must buy on Yom, and kind of not a lot of their characters buying it. Toxic bullets damage reduced from 2.5% max HP to 2.1, but it now scales with spirit power. 0.005%. How much is that? Like, seems probably good that it's nerfed at base. I think Toxic Bullets is probably too strong at base. I have no idea how much, oh my god, let me just calculator. Let's see, if we wanted to do 0.005 times, like, if you had like 100 spirit. So if you had like 100 spirit, then I guess it's about the same. 100 spirit is a lot of spirit. Berserker, bullet resistance reduced from 16 to 8%. That item is broken. This probably was a needed nerf. Makes it a little bit better. Blood Tribute, healing reduction reduced. Now grants 4 out of combat regen. Active move speed increased from 1.75 to 2. Maybe that item is playable. I don't think anyone's buying this item. Maybe it's playable now. The healing reduction is just really brutal. Weighted shots, bullet velocity reduced from minus 25 to minus 30%. Stamina recovery reduced from minus 10 to 20%. Weighted shots it's just kind of like too many stats for not enough downside. Maybe this brings it back in line. It's probably still really good though. Hunter's Aura now grants +1 sprint. Cool. That item was decent. Might be slightly better. Spirit Rend, yep, that matches the Spirit Shredder from before. Crushing Fist, bullet resistance reduced from 20% to 12%. Good, I mean that matches the heavy melee change, right? Heavy melee distance reduced from +70 to +60. Good, melee is annoying. Seems fine. Armor piercing rounds, chance to reduce from 60% to 50%. Man, this item is like, I don't know. The fact that it, like, maybe 50% will make it better, like, feel a little better, but, like, the fact that it just, like, it, like, almost just makes it invalidated to buying bullet resilience or, like, bullet resistance at all. Now, it felt like when people had armor piercing rounds, you just have to buy, like, armor, or plated armor, but maybe this will make it feel a little bit better. Shadow Weave duration reduced, cooldown reduced, and grants 25% melee damage on ambush reveal. Interesting. So maybe there's like some Abrams nonsense to be done here. The cooldown the duration went down by 7 and the cooldown by 8, so your uptime's a little bit higher. I don't know. Shadow Weave's not a particularly popular item right now. I'm not sure that this will necessarily bring it up. Might be get some like I said, niche use on like an Abrams or something maybe. Capacitor damage increased, cool. No one was buying that item. Might be a little bit more compelling as just an upgrade, unless like they had a viscous or something. No one's really buying capacitor. Didn't seem like. Spellslinger buff duration increased from 10 seconds to 14 seconds. It seems like a positive change, especially after the nerf last patch where you have to like do something, or you have to hit somebody with an ability. This will probably help to keep your uptime a little bit better. Vitality items. Guardian Ward, cooldown reduced. I feel like this item keeps getting buffed and is okay, but no one's buying it. Excellent. Weapon shielding, barrier reduced. Doesn't scale. It scales with boons. Okay. Barrier reduced on spirit shielding. Doesn't scale spirit power. Scales with boons. These items, especially with spirit shielding, was way too strong. And now it looks like they're a little bit more in line, so they'll be less obnoxious. Like if you bought these items first thing in lane, they're probably still quite strong, but they were way too strong. Return fire bullet resistance reduced. Damage returned reduced. Spirit damage returned reduced. That's kind of annoying. I like return fire. It's really funny to build in the haze, but probably makes sense. It was a lot of stats and value for 1600 souls, which is pretty cheap. Veilwalker cooldown reduced. This item is still just probably good on like 3 or 4 characters, and maybe I think there's some people that are talking about building this instead of Fortitude. Because it gives you more move speed and like still some healing. Maybe that's still a thing, but the fact that you get so much health from Fortitude, I don't know. I think that's a hard sell. Metal Skin cooldown reduced from 24 to 20. I think a lot of people are just buying Return Fire over Metal Skin. Might make this, like these changes might bring Metal Skin a little bit more commonly into the game. Debuff remover, health, bonus health reduced, cooldown increased. I don't know, I like nerfing debuff remover sucks because a lot of times the item feels like a must buy, and having worse stats makes it feel worse. I don't know, maybe this is fine, maybe it was getting bought too much. Notably, no changes to counterspell, it looks like, in the 3200 section for vitality items, so counterspell is still very strong. A lot of games I was actually starting to build counterspell over debuff remover, and with the nerfs there, it looks like that trend will probably continue. Trophy collector out of combat region increased from 2 to 3.5. That item is still probably bad on most characters, with a couple of exceptions. Spirit resilience, spirit resistance reduced from 30% to 25%. I guess maybe the item is getting too much value. Do you still get 30% when you're below or not? Because if it was, 60% under 30%, when you're under 30% HP, I don't know if it's 50% or 55%, but a nerf to spirit resilience probably makes sense, because this was sort of just a one-stop shop for having less spirit damage taken by a lot. Divine Barrier cooldowns reduced. This is like Guardian Ward Divine Barrier. I don't think the item's getting bought too much. Cheat Death effect no longer gets pierced by kill events like Killing Blow Guided Owl. It's a good change. Not a super common item, but it was super annoying that you would get executed with it. Just blocking Shiv ult is pretty great. Love that. Fuck Shiv. Alright, spirit items. Rusted Barrel reduces bullet resistance by 5%, and the cooldown's reduced. No one's buying that item. Maybe this makes it playable in lane. I'm not sure how much damage increase you'll get for 5% bullet resistance. Could be playable. Suppressor nerf is good. A lot of people would buy that early on in lane, and the fire rate reduction in lane is truly obnoxious. Cold Front spear resistance reduced from 10% to 6%. Cold Front was probably a bit too strong on the characters that it was good on. Still gonna pretty much probably get bought, but on like your pockets and stuff like that. But at least now it's a little weaker. Slowing hex duration increased from 3 to 3.5. I was talking to a friend earlier this week about how slowing hex is not super common right now. Not very, like, mostly it's only bought on like bebops or hazes or paradoxes. It's really hard for people to want to build utility items right now with the post item change, and Any buff to Slowing X is good, I think. Bullet Resist Shredder buffed from 12 to 13%. I think people are starting to pick that item up. Another 1% might increase play a little bit too. Spirit Sap has more spirit power reduction, cast range increase, bonus health increased. I feel like this item is just like purely a component for Silence Wave, and I don't know that I see a lot of people buying Spirit Sap for just the effect. But maybe those changes will change that. Disarming Hex cooldown reduced from 25 to 20. Cool. That makes sense with Rusted Barrel. I think it's an upgrade there. More power to utility items to get people to buy them seems like a good change. Surge of Power cooldown increased, duration increased, fire rate increased, spirit power increased. Interesting. Surge of Power on like 7's 3 seems really strong. And it's probably less strong on stuff like GT's arrows. That would be my take for that. Tank Buster now ignores enemy spirit resistance, but it's reduced from 6% to 5%. Man, I feel like that seems quite strong, but I'm not 100% sure. 5%, but ignoring spirit resistance. I feel like they don't want it, like they kept it tame. But I don't know, it'll be interesting to see how good that is. It sounds good. Decay damage increased from 2.4 to 2.6. People stopped buying Decay. Give it a bit of a buff. Sure. Scourge projectile speed increased from 800 to 1600. So I guess Scourge has a travel time. Sure. Focus lens cooldown reduced. That item is really obnoxious, but not very common. I don't know that 3 seconds of cooldown is going to make a huge difference there. Vortex Web moving faster is pretty strong though. Projectile speed from 1800 to 2400. Okay, now let's get into heroes. The heroes section is honestly shorter than I expected. Let's take a look. Starting with Bebop, no longer has 10% base bullet resistance. Boo. But probably wise. Having characters with base resistance is probably a little too strong for a lane. Now has 0.3% bullet resistance per boon, so it'll eventually be pretty strong. Exploding Uppercut tier 2 reduced from 50% weapon damage to 40%. Duration reduced from 12 seconds to 9 seconds. A bit of a nerf to the tier 2, which makes sense. Grapple Arm T1 is reduced from 25% weapon damage to 20%, and Grapple Arm T1, the duration of the buff is reduced from 10 to 6. Kind of makes sense. The Bebop power spike for hitting like your 2 points into uppercut, 1 point into hook, and then just like hook uppercut someone was pretty strong, pretty obnoxious in lane, really hard to lane against. But the people who were putting 2 points into bomb first probably won't care that much. Dynamo Kinetic Pulse damage height increased from 0.5 to 0.7 meters. Harder to jump over. The Dynamo Kinetic Pulse makes him slightly more threatening in lane. Great Talon Spirit Snare Curse duration increased. Sure. Guided Owl cooldown reduced from 135 to 120. That'll probably be good for GT. GT's pick rate's pretty low. Give him a little bit more utility. Elven Arctic Beam T3 no longer bounce off objectives. This brings it in line with Ricochet from last patch, where they made Ricochet not bounce into players from objectives, so that makes sense. Geist Essence Bomb no longer sticks to units. Cool. Cooldown increased. Radius increased. Changed from plus 2 meters radius to minus 4 second cooldown. And projectile speed increased. Yeah, I feel like Geist Bomb was kind of bad. Might be too strong again. Geist was already kind of annoying. Geist was already really strong. This might bring her back to being one of the like strongest picks in the patch. Magnus health per boon is reduced from 56 to 52. Spectral wall fixed a bug when aiming at long stairs. Cause the preview to go through it. Change the preview particle. Supports lag compensation. Will now erupt the preview particle is displaying when manually triggering the eruption. Target's health per boon reduced from 10 to 12, so McGinnis is a little bit weaker. She was kind of strong. Turret build is a little weaker because her turrets were probably too danky. Mirage base bullet damage reduced by 10%. Yeah. Mirage probably does too much damage. I feel like there's other stuff that you can probably nerf about him, but it seems like a good change. He's probably one of the strongest laners in the game. 10% reduction in damage might tone that back a little bit. Let's see what we got. Paradox bullet damage scaling increased by 10%. Cool. Paradox was incredibly weak. One of the weaker characters on the patch. Might help bring her back into relevance. Pocket Affliction's initial current HP percent damage increased from 10% to 12%. We love a pocket buff. Pocket was already pretty strong. Here we go. Shiv and Seven. Probably the two biggest offenders from the last patch that people really wanted to see nerfed. Rage now only builds up from damaging players. It builds up 20% faster, or increased, rage buildup increased by 20%. Rage decay duration increase, bloodletting duration reduced from 12 to 6 seconds. Cooldown reduced, damage clear increased, T1 and T2 swapped, T3 increased from 20% to 35%. I think that the rage only building up from damaging players is probably a good thing. It'll make it harder to maintain rage unless you're like I feel like you'll like the idea of the character was to over the course of a fight become more and more problematic instead of starting a fight at 100 rage, which is probably a good thing. And then bloodletting duration reduced to 6 seconds from 12, so it'll last for less. So it'll take from bloodletting quicker, which I wonder if it will make it like those Shiv kills at the end like a little easier. If you have over his health cap for what he's taking in bloodletting damage, I'll be curious to see how that feels. So Shiv's got a couple nerfs. I'm not 100% sure how much they're going to affect Shiv, but at a minimum, the rage is a big change. Seven's base movement speed is reduced. Spirit scaling for the moving has also been reduced. Power Surge Tier 1 and Tier 2 swapped, so instead of getting shred at level 1, you get cooldown at level 1. That's kind of annoying, man. I don't know, 7 getting cooldown at level 1 for Power Surge means that you get basically Power Surge like every wave, which is kind of annoying. Stormcloud cooldown increased. Spirit scaling reduced. DPS reduced. T3 reduced. Man, I don't know that this solves some of the 7 problems that people were having. A lot of the good players on 7 are building for Power Surge anyways, and not even like maxing ult. I don't know that this really affects that much. The base movement speed and the spirit scaling is something, but I don't know. I don't know how much like ult 7 was. Like ult 7 was ult 7 ult's annoying for like finishing the game or that kind of thing. I don't know how much it matters for the problems that people were having with 7. I feel like that's not exactly the direction I figured a nerf would happen, but Vindicta, honestly, this probably doesn't change 7 that much at higher ranks and makes 7 at lower ranks way worse. That would be my take. Vindicta Crow Tier 1 bounce no longer bounces off of objectives. Probably just more of the stuff doesn't bounce off objectives, full stop. I mean, makes sense, bring it in line. Stake reduced from +2 meters to +1 meter. That's a good change. Honestly, I can almost see more changes to Vindicta Stake. Vindicta Stake is really strong. Vindicta in general is still really strong. Viscous Puddle Punch cooldown reduced and reduced more from Tier 3. I don't think a lot of people were playing Punch Viscous or Puddle Punch Viscous. 12 seconds per charge of Puddle Punch might make Puddle Punch Viscous a little bit more playable. That'd be cool, instead of seeing just Ball or Goo Viscous. Warden's bullet base damage is reduced from 17 to 15. Good. He did probably too much damage at the beginning of the game, and then grows into it a little bit more. DPS reduced from 70 to 7. Yeah, Warden did too much damage early in the lane. I would agree. Last Stand lifesteal versus non-heroes reduced from 15% to 10%. It seems like Warden's play pattern previously was to just kind of shoot people while they're in lane. You would get ult and Arcane Surge, and then you could just take Guardian. and probably not super possible to just do that anymore. So it seems like a healthier place for Warden to be. Got some Wraith buffs, bullet damage increased, and bullet damage growth reduced a bit, so the same overall peak damage. Wraith was really weak at laning. This probably helps her out a little bit in the early game. Yamato alt fire base damage reduced, good, and it grows per boon. I am fearful of. I guess it's 0.7 per boon, so it probably gets to about the same at the end of it. But the Yamato plus buffed Express Shot is a little spooky for sure, because that character was already very strong with Express Shot. So I think overall, good patch, got some good balance changes, definitely needed to spice things up and shake it up a little bit. I think Shiv and 7 were sort of public enemy number 1 going in. The general game changes, feels like we're trying to, get people to spread out a little bit, not clump so hard. There's a lot of downsides now to staying 2 grouped for too long. The mid boss change is definitely a really big change, and it'll be interesting to see how much difference it makes for the comeback multipliers. But hopefully it'll make the game feel a little less like a yo-yo, where you're kind of going up and down, and leads feel a little bit more impactful. The changes to the timing for trooper spawns after 20 minutes. I'll be curious to see how that feels, but I think it seems like the pacing of the game and like the punishment for not managing your waves is going to be higher. So you got to make sure that you're managing your waves, and otherwise they're just going to be like on top of your walkers and doing a bunch of damage, which I think is a good thing for getting people's macro sense into a good spot. Overall, this is a pretty good patch. Obviously, I think we're still all getting ready for the big patch, but until the big patch, good stopgap. Got some good changes. It'll be curious to see how some of the changes feel. But I'm curious to hear what you guys think. What do you think about the patch? What are you excited about for the next patch? Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Have a good one, guys.